Oh, tonight.
Maybe it is a dog-eat-dog world in the 90s, but it could be worse. At least on land, you don't have to worry about getting eaten by one of these. We'll tell you about the one that didn't get away tonight, live at 5.
Now, from the ATV News Center at every city and town in the Maritimes, this is the ATV Evening News, live at 5.
Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, November 9th. Welcome to Live at 5. I'm Nancy Regan.
And I'm Paul Meunier. Tonight on Live at 5, we've got the results of our phone poll last night on TV violence. And we're going to ask you to take a stand on another issue tonight as we look at a debate dealing with decriminalization of prostitution.
I'm Jonathan Kay in Dartmouth. Before tonight's prostitution debate, we'll look at the reasons some Maritimers say prostitution shouldn't be made legal.
I'm Sally Cummings in St. John, where police have cracked down on prostitutes and johns in recent months. I'll tell you some of the advantages of legalizing prostitution coming up.
I'm Randy McDonald in Sydney. Contrary to what many might believe, there's statistical proof that the family unit is alive, well, and growing. There's no better proof than the butlers. We'll meet the family coming up on Live at 5.
And also tonight, winning a majority was the easy part. Keeping the majority happy is another thing altogether tonight. An exclusive interview with the Premier of Nova Scotia.
And the latest on the royal ruckus over candid cameras. Diana says she'll sue. We'll find out what you think about this latest controversy. All this and much more ahead on the Tuesday edition of Live at 5. We'll get underway right after a check-in with Steve Murphy, working on the ATV Evening News at 6. Steve.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Good afternoon, everyone. Coming up in just under 1 hour on the ATV Evening News, sparks are flying after one of the region's largest hospitals announces some staff cuts. How will those cuts affect your health and your next trip to the hospital? The story here at 6 o'clock. Also tonight, the view from undercover. Morality cops following the trail of child pornography into the Maritimes. How does this stuff get here, and what can we do to get rid of it? Story at 6 o'clock. Also on the program tonight, is date rape a myth? A university prof in hot water tonight because of comments he made to that effect. The professor's generated a storm of controversy by saying rape is no big deal for any woman with sexual experience. Now he wants money to grant media interviews. The story is coming up. Right now, it's time for our first fast look at the maritime weather forecast. Here's Richard Zarowski in the ATV Weather Center. Richard?
Thanks a lot, Steve. And what we're looking at right now is a pretty good forecast. We have it short, sweet, and simple. A lot of mild temperatures coming in for tomorrow, some sunshine, not much cloud on the weather horizon at all. And I'll be pleased to tell you about the forecast that I'm working on for you in about 25 minutes, Steve.
That's right, the weather at 5:30, then at 6 o'clock, all the day's top stories, including much ado about nothing. Well, maybe. It seems everybody on the other side of the border is jumping into the debate over free trade among Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So why aren't Maritimers getting worked up over it? Will it cost you a job or get you a job? NAFTA, tonight on the ATV Evening News at 6 o'clock, right after Live at 5 with Nancy and Paul. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Steve. First at 5, it's called the world's oldest profession. The ancient Greeks and Romans made prostitutes wear distinctive clothing and pay heavy taxes. Today, of course, the perception of prostitution differs from culture to culture. Here in Canada, the prostitution trade is illegal, but that certainly doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
A Halifax group that helps prostitutes is bringing together lawyers, social workers, police, and government officials tonight for a debate. The question, should prostitution be decriminalized? ATV's Mark Miller is standing by with a look at what might be said tonight. Mark.
Well, decriminalization isn't a new idea. It's been talked about in this country for years and years. Some experts predict it would be a lot easier to protect the men and women who work the streets by moving prostitution out from the underground. But the idea...
Put together a task force.
It's been more than a year since the Metro Task Force on Prostitution was set up, but in that time there have been dozens of arrests as police have tried to crack down on pimps. Here are the numbers. 40 pimps arrested, 260 charges laid, 13 convictions. All sentenced to federal time, 2 years or more in prison. There are still dozens of cases going to trial. While the issue of prostitution is getting lots of court time, the debate into finding new ways to battle the problem has been set on the back burner. Tonight, decriminalization as an option will take the spotlight at a debate at Dell Law School.
Well, I think they're talking about it across Canada. I think other areas are talking about the issue also.
And why, though?
Why? Well, I think prostitution has always been around. And prostitution will always be around. We're not going to stop prostitution.
Joel Pink will be at the debate. A high-profile lawyer will argue against the idea.
Well, I think, in essence, what's going to happen is that it's going to make people more aware of the real serious problems that exist with prostitutes. And if they want to carry it further, of course, that's up to them.
On the streets of Halifax, the issue is still a hot topic, but not everyone is willing to talk about it. What do you guys think? Should they decriminalize prostitution, or should they leave it the way it is?
I'm not touching that one.
I think it would be more prostitution if they do that.
How come?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that I hear talking that would say, you know, if it was legal, they would do it. So, you know, I don't think it's a good idea.
I think it's navel-gazing. I don't think it's ever going to happen here. I mean, I know it happened in Amsterdam, but I don't think it's going to happen here.
Nancy, that's just a taste of what you'll get to see tonight if you do get down to the debate. It starts at 7:30 at Dalhousie University in the Students' Union building in the McInnes room. Now, from what I've been told, tickets are going fast, so you might want to get down there a little bit before 7:30 if you want to get in the door.
Good advice, Mark. But can you tell me what the organizers hope will come out of this debate?
Well, I mean, it has been a year and a half, or a little over a year, rather, since the Prostitution Task Force was started. And when it was started, there was stories every day on our newscasts and in our newspapers. The group doesn't expect this to change any laws. They don't expect to see decriminalization to come out of this debate. They're just saying they're putting it on the front burner to get people talking about the issues.
All right. Thank you, Mark. ATV's Mark Miller in Halifax tonight. Paul.
Nancy, many Maritimers oppose the idea of relaxing the laws prohibiting prostitution. They are resigned to the fact prostitution has played a role in society since its inception and likely will continue to do so. But ATV's Jonathan Kay found out today many Maritimers believe the law must, as a matter of principle, come down against prostitution.
Laws against prostitution are already limited. In Dartmouth this summer, for example, people in some residential neighborhoods complained of an increase in prostitution-related activity. But police were limited in what they could do.
Police don't really have that much power now. The police just can't go up in the street and pick somebody up off the corner because they're prostituting themselves. I think that, I don't think things would be any better. I think they'd be worse than they are now.
While the nuisance created by prostitutes is a factor, Mayor McCluskey says that's not the only concern.
I talked to a lady recently where her young daughter, pimps tried to pick her up and then kept phoning the house and threatening them, and I doubt if that would stop. I think they'd still be out there picking up young girls and taking them away and have them work as prostitutes. I think our country's far better off without legalized prostitution, even though we could say we'd get taxes and there'd be medical checkups and maybe the prostitutes would be better protected, but I'm not so sure of that.
Many of the people we talk with on the street today say they're in favor of legalizing prostitution. They say the government would then be able to control it much more effectively. But that opinion was far from unanimous.
Yeah, I think they're opening up a kettle of fish they won't be able to get out of.
I just don't think that Canadian society is geared for or ready for legalized prostitution.
Just because it would give sort of tacit approval to it?
Yeah, probably. It would give approval to it, and I think with the problems that have been around in the last while with the pimps and all this type of thing, I don't want to see any expansion of that, that's for sure.
To me, it's a moral issue, so I don't agree with it, so I'd never agree with the legalization.
So the main concern seems to be that even if the law isn't the strongest or the most strictly enforced, some people are simply uncomfortable with taking prostitution out of the criminal code, because that would remove the stigma. And these people say that stigma is one of the few things left that's keeping prostitution in check.
All right, thank you, Jonathan Kay, reporting in Halifax. That's one side of the argument. And now here is the other side. Nancy?
Thank you, Paul. Police are often frustrated in their attempts to combat prostitution. Crackdowns and arrests often only push the problem further underground. ATV's Sally Cummings is standing by live in St. John, where police arrested 18 Johns earlier this fall. But some say criminal charges may not be the solution. Isn't that right, Sally?
That's right. Some say that the best way to handle prostitution would be to legalize it, as they have done in Amsterdam and Nevada. They say it would be better to acknowledge the problem rather than wish it would just go away. Amsterdam's red light district often comes to mind when people think of legalized prostitution. Customers have also been able to legally solicit sex in many counties in Nevada for about 15 years. The Cherry Patch promotes itself as a disease-free establishment.
Make it mandatory that all customers wear condoms. It's well policed by the authorities. We never have any trouble. And our doorbell keeps ringing, ringing, ringing.
Owner Joe Richards says legalized prostitution is inevitable.
Well, it's the best way to go. It brings money into the economy. And you're going to have it anyway, so you might as well make it legal.
This is one of the areas in St. John where prostitution has been a problem. Some say one of the benefits of legalizing prostitution is that it would clean up streets like this.
Just saw young ones standing on the corner over there. That's all I ever seen.
What would you think if it was legalized? Would that clean up the streets any?
It might. It would make them go inside. It might help them.
While religious leaders have moral concerns, whether you condemn it or agree with it, some question whether prostitution may be better regulated and controlled.
From a spiritual point of view, you could argue that when something is turned into a law, breaking that law looks attractive. And this is a point that is made by the Apostle Paul quite often, that law brings in its wake sinfulness.
The advantages would be health advantages for everyone. This wouldn't be underground.
The Canadian Fraser study looked at the legalization of prostitution in the mid-'80s with the idea that repressing the problem will not make it go away.
How can we improve the social and economic condition of women so that, you know, fewer women would actually end up as street prostitutes?
Now, Nancy, the owner of the Nevada brothel that I spoke with today said he's never had any problems, and he says, in fact, he has several Canadian customers.
All right, Sally, thank you. ATV Sally Cummings in St. John tonight. Now you've heard arguments on both sides of this issue. We want to know what you think in a Live at 5 telephone poll. The question is, should prostitution be legalized? If you think it should, let us know by calling 1-900-273-4040. That's 1-900-273-4040 to register a yes vote. If, on the other hand, you don't think prostitution should be legalized, you can vote at 1-900-273-5050. That's 1-900-273-5050 to register a no vote. Remember, calls cost 50 cents apiece, and our lines will be open until 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. We'll have the results on tomorrow's version of Live at 5, and we'll repeat these numbers in a few minutes in case you missed them this time.
And it should be a very interesting debate in Halifax tonight between those two high-profile lawyers. Well, still to come, the latest on the Princess of Wales controversy, but next, face-to-face with John Savage, Premier of Nova Scotia, on victories and defeats.
Today you have in fact summoned the Liberal Party to government. And today, as leader of the Liberal Party, I promise to honor your trust.
The next Premier of Nova Scotia, John Savage.
That was the scene on May 25th, a night of great joy and optimism for Liberals in Nova Scotia. Since then, the hard realities of governing, even with a huge majority, have sunk in. Joining us tonight to talk about successes and failures, Nova Scotia Premier John Savage. He's with Steve Murphy. Steve?
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for coming in, Premier. Do you have any opinion on the question du jour, the legalization of prostitution? Are you in favor of that?
I'm very much in favor of attacking the two bad people in that, who are the Johns and the customers.
Haven't we been doing that?
Not
unsuccessfully?
Not successfully.
So go after the consumer.
Go after the consumer and the people who make the most money out of it, and stop banging the women in the sense of injuring them.
Are you prepared to compel police to do that? Are you able to do that?
Well, we have to look at budgets, which we always say these days.
Leads very nicely to the questions I had on this paper. A man stopped me on the street on the way to work this morning. This is true.
Right.
Nice gentleman from Cape Breton, a taxpayer in Nova Scotia. He told me that John Savage has proven himself a wolf in sheep's clothing, that after campaigning as a lamb, he is chopping and hacking like a lion. Is that true?
Some of it is true. Some of it, unfortunately, is what we've got to do. We did not bargain. If you'd asked me that I would be doing what I'm doing now before the election, I would have laughed at you.
I did ask you that.
Yes, and I would probably laugh at you then.
You didn't laugh, but you denied it. You denied specifically that it would be necessary for you to do what Don Cameron said he would do, but that's exactly what you've done.
But the issue basically was quite simple. I was faced with the decision of either allowing the province to continue into the real slump in which we would have gone over $600 or $700 million in debt, or else I had to make a decision about taxes.
But you,
that was
Premier,
basically as a result.
with the greatest of respect.
But that was basically as a result of the withdrawal of the extra money that we had anticipated from the federal government.
But Premier, with great respect, you are now doing what Donald Cameron said he would do.
Yes, but we're doing a lot more than what Donald Cameron said he would do.
Well, he was tossed out of office.
We're making
He was
decisions.
tossed out of office, presumably, at least in part, because people didn't want this.
We're making decisions that people are now respecting, purely and simply because they should have been made 5 or 10 years ago.
Yes, but
we're
is there
making
not
them.
a trust issue here? You didn't talk about slashing and cutting and raising taxes. Au contraire, you promised no tax increase.
We promised that we would give good government. And what we're giving basically is good leadership, dealing with government reform, looking at what we have to do to put this province back on its feet.
But weren't you elected under false pretenses? You didn't promise any of what you've done. Your opponent promised to do much of what you've done, and he was trounced.
The agenda that we set was changed by the mess that we inherited. You know that, and I know that.
Well, yes, but why didn't you know that or suspect that before you got elected?
Did you know there were $2 billion of debt added in the last 2 years?
Well, certainly there were a lot of people who suspected the picture was not very rosy.
Yes, but
and that it would be necessary for you to do all the things you said you didn't think you'd have to do.
The $2 billion of debt, nobody knew.
But don't you think people are tired of this rhetoric? You know, the rhetoric that says the situation is worse than we thought.
It's not rhetoric. It is the absolute truth. And you know and I know that this province is in the most perilous financial position it's ever been in.
But Premier,
and whether you like it, or I like it, or they like it, we're in a mess.
But Premier,
and what we need,
it's
regardless...
rhetoric now.
No, it's not rhetoric.
It is rhetoric now
it's hard,
because
cold truth.
At the time you were campaigning, you would not even entertain questions about what it is now that you're forced to do, or that you say you're forced to do.
Sure.
So doesn't that ring hollow to taxpayers?
The hollowness would have been a lot worse if we had allowed this province to slip into the perilous position. We're the second worst province financially in the country. We have a debt that is only exceeded by one Newfoundland. And we have a responsibility as a government to say, yes, we would love to do all those things that we promised we would do. But we don't have the money to do it, and we want to save this province for you and your children and your children's children. And if we don't do that, then we're not governing.
But don't you feel that you have broken faith with the people who voted for you?
I don't think we've broken faith because what I said was, at that time, an unwise remark. I freely admit that. I've said that to Liberals at the weekend. I've said it to all kinds of people, and I know that.
Yes. This is the I'm sorry for the tax increase.
Yes. But it's necessary to say that.
But are you apologizing for making a promise
No.
that you couldn't keep, or for making a promise that you probably suspected you couldn't keep even when you made it?
No, the issue was made in good faith. What we discovered was that we couldn't face the people of Nova Scotia unless we said to them, we've got to put taxes up, we've got to get an extra 70, 80, almost $100 million, and we have no choice. And if I said to you that the shame of breaking a promise and not allowing that was worse, then I would be letting down Nova Scotians. I know Nova Scotians don't like this now, but come back in 4 years and ask us what they think in 4 years when we get this province on the right path.
Allow me to ask you specifically about hospital cuts, and we only have about 40 seconds. I'll tell you that before I ask the question. Do you believe that Nova Scotians, and in particularly Nova Scotians who may be in the metropolitan Halifax-Dartmouth area, want the government to cut back the VG hospital?
It isn't a question of whether they want to. It's a question of having to do what we have to do with a budget that has to be cut. There is no question that there are major cuts that have to be made. We think, given next year's budget, that we can address the real issue of health care, which is putting back into the people's homes, putting into their areas and their neighborhoods health care, and deinstitutionalizing health care.
But that means laying off people in the big hospitals.
This year, because of the budget position we were in, we have no choice to do what we've had to do. But remember, we're not laying them off. It's the Nova Scotia and it's the VG.
But that's a distinction that politicians make. People don't make that distinction.
No, but be fair now. If we have on-hands management, it's up to us to do it, as we did with civil servants, and as we will be doing with civil servants in the upcoming year.
Fair enough.
But we're meeting with the unions, we're talking to the unions. In this case, this is the VG hospital, which is not our responsibility in terms of management. But you mark my words, 4 years' time, it'll be different.
Are you sure you still want this job?
Sure.
John Savage, thanks for coming in. Premier of Nova Scotia, the Honourable John Savage. 5 at 5 is back in just a moment with the results of last night's telephone poll on TV violence and family albums. It's a snapshot of the new Canadian family in the 90s, and it's coming up.
Thank the Lord for giving us the things we need. Sun and the rain and the apple tree, the Lord is good to us. Turn the apple seed, amen.
Heads up! Don't worry, Marv, I'll get him for you.
We showed you that scene yesterday on Live at 5 as part of our discussion on violence on television. Now, as we told you yesterday, Canadian broadcasters are taking the lead in North America in dealing with the issue by adopting a tough code. But how do you determine what is suitable for children? It is a very, obviously, subjective area. So we asked you if that clip from Home Alone is too violent for TV.
Here are the answers we got. We had 1,570 calls. 48% agreed that the scene from Home Alone is too violent for television. 52% thought this was not too violent for TV. Our poll is not scientific, we recognize that, but it does represent the views of over 1,500 Maritimers who called, and we thank them very much for their participation.
And that brings us to the numbers for tonight's telephone poll, in case you missed them at the top of the show. The question tonight is, should prostitution be legalized? The numbers to call if you want to participate in that phone poll, 1-900-273-4040 if you agree that prostitution should be legalized. If you think that it should not be legalized, the number to call is 1-900-273-5050. Remember, calls cost 50 cents.
Well, there is some encouraging news on the family front. A new federal study shows the number of Canadian families is growing rapidly. The trend helps dispel fear that divorce, teen pregnancies, and the me generation are helping drive the family into extinction.
ATV's Randy McDonald tonight with 2 family portraits.
You guys eating us again?
Hi, honeys.
It is lunchtime, and Wolf and Judy Butler have scooted home from work for a midday meal with 3 of their 4 children. It is a daily ritual for the professional couple, both of whom are teachers in Sydney. The Butlers have busy careers, but they let nothing stand in the way of their family time together.
And so I thank the Lord for giving us the things we need. Sun and the rain and the apple tree, the Lord is good to us.
We have our days just like any other family. We have our hard times. We have a lot of good times, though. And I always tell my kids that when it comes right down to it, you have each other. And that's the most important thing.
4 girls are really good to each other. We like to do crafts together, and we like to take little trips together, and we love to read together.
While the Butlers represent what might be called a typical family, another cohesive unit, which is doing quite well, thank you, is the single-parent family.
You want to put the water in one of those dishes, and Taylor, you put the bird feed in?
On this day, a brand new bird has joined the Steele family. That puts the number in the family at 6. There's Mom, 2 growing boys, a cat, a kitten, and a still unnamed canary. But most of all, there is Mom.
Your mother and father, 24 hours a day. You have the total emotional and financial responsibility. You have to, you know, anytime they're sick, you've got to get them to the doctors or see that they have their prescription filled, or anything at school, you're it. You never get a break, you know.
Single-parent units now make up 13% of all families in Canada. The federal study says that number is up, but not nearly as dramatically as many had believed. Overall, there are now upward of 7.5 million families in the country. That's nearly 50% more than there were in the early 1970s. In Sydney, Randy McDonald, ATV News.
Interesting stuff.
Thank you,
Faces
Randy.
behind the numbers. Yeah, lots more to come on the Tuesday edition of Live at 5, including these stories.
When we think of war, we think of men at war, not women at war. I'm Bill Jessam, and later on Live at 5, we'll meet 3 women who know what war is all about.
I'm Yvonne Colbert on your side in Middlewood, Nova Scotia, where Coke is a hot topic of conversation at this country store. I'll tell you why later on Live at 5.
And we'll have the latest from England on the Princess Di controversy. But next, a detailed look at the maritime weather forecast from a prince of a meteorologist, Richard Zarowski. Four years ago today, the government of what was then East Germany allowed free passage between East and West. The Berlin Wall had come down. In just a moment, part 2 of Bill Jessam's Memories of War. Tonight, poignant recollections of women and their part in the last Great War.
But first, it's time to check in with meteorologist Richard Zarowski. I heard rumors there was some flurry activity in northern New Brunswick, but for the rest of the maritime region, I think today was an absolutely beautiful fall day, wasn't it, Richard?
It was absolutely gorgeous all across the maritime regions for the most part. If you got a chance to go outside and enjoy and sample some of this weather, I think you're like the rest of us and had a great time out there. Lots of sunshine. We had a few cloudy periods, but for the most part, the area of high pressure gave us sunshine right across the map. Temperatures getting up close to the double digits, and of course, that's where we want to keep them. We have a low pressure system up to the north. Well, that's moving off. A low pressure down to the south. Well, that'll stay well to the south, and of course, we can expect to see this sort of pattern continuing for the next little while. We're also looking at temperatures duplicating what we had for today as the area of high pressure holds up. So close-up view shows some cloud moving in through the southern areas of the map. That's sort of a weak bit of a disturbance. That'll get a chance to slide off overnight. That'll produce a few clouds here and there, but for the most part, we will see clear skies. We can expect to see a duplication of the temperatures we had today, anywhere from 5 to 8 or 9 degrees right across the maritime regions. And as I said, some areas did get up to double digits, and of course beyond. For tonight, there'll be a few scattered snow flurries to the north, a few cloudy periods here and there. Temperatures also repeating what we had last night, and most areas getting close to the freezing mark or below, with the exception of the eastern sections of the map and the southern sections of the mainland of Nova Scotia. Temperatures will range anywhere from -6 to +2 degrees. And of course, along the coastal areas, the temperatures will be warmest because of the influence of that warm water. Now, by tomorrow evening, both low-pressure disturbances, one off to the north, down to the south, staying basically away from the maritime regions. The one over Labrador and northern Quebec will get a chance to drift a little bit to the east. You can see a bit of a cold front starting to drag across the northern areas of New Brunswick by tomorrow evening. Again, that's a factor up there, as is the northerly flow, which is picking up moisture off the Gulf and depositing it in the form of scattered snow flurries. You can see the cold air sort of wheeling around the northern areas of the Maritimes. So we'll continue with that area of high pressure. It will continue to be our weather maker, and of course, that's exactly what we want to see for this time of year. Now, for tomorrow, there'll be a few scattered snow flurries up to the north. Temperatures will be in New Brunswick anywhere between 4 degrees and 8 or 9 degrees. Again, it's not unlikely that we're going to get into double digits. We're also looking at temperatures hovering around 5 or 6 degrees out to the east mainland of Nova Scotia, also duplicating what we had today. All in all, it should be a pretty good day. Close-up view of New Brunswick shows sunny with cloudy periods as we head out to the east. Pretty much the same thing going on there. The area of high pressure makes sure that there isn't too much of a variation in the weather patterns right across the maritime regions. And again, temperatures will be between 4 and 10 degrees, north, south, east, or west. Coastal areas can expect to see a little bit in the way of cloud. Now we'll get to the nuts and bolts of the rest of the week. We're looking at probability of sunshine here, 80% for tomorrow, 80% for Thursday, 80% for Friday, and 80% for Saturday. And it looks as though if we can keep this weather, Nancy and Paul, going till Christmas, I think we'll put a lot of smiles on a lot of faces.
There may be a really good Christmas present in it for you too, Richard.
Yeah, keep that in mind. That's for sure. Well, during the First and Second World Wars, women not only played an important role in the services, but on the home front as well. They worked in munition plants and other war-related jobs, while their husbands and sons were overseas.
This evening, in part 2 of his special series on memories of the 2 great wars, Bill Jessup introduces us to 3 women who know what war is all about: the serving, the waiting, and the fleeing.
At the 11th hour on November 11th, 1918, the First World War ended. Very few of those who lived through that great war are still alive today to talk about it. However, time and memories have been kind to 97-year-old Alice Strike of Halifax. Born in England, Alice did her part for the war effort by serving in the British forces.
All the British soldiers went to war right away. There was hardly anyone left in the little place. And I knew about 5 girls I went to school with, all left widows, around 19 or 20. I remember them all as if it was yesterday. Yes. And then I done war work. Well, we all done war work. Everything was turned into khaki, putties and balaclavas, and then everything for war. And then after the British Tommies had gone to war and many didn't come back, the Canadian soldiers came over to where I lived. The camps were right at Bramshot and Whitley.
When Alice looks back to her teen years, she thinks of young love and how she met her husband-to-be, a Canadian soldier from Winnipeg.
We sat on the banks of the Clyde, and that's where he asked me to come to this country, I guess. Yeah, right in the deep heather. Yeah.
ship.
Nellie Chandler can never forget those long and terrible 6 years of the Second World War and the waiting for her sailor husband to return from convoy escort duty on the North Atlantic.
Wondering if he would be back, wondering if he'd make it safely. And I think most wives and girlfriends were the same thing. You went out and you did the normal things, and I was a hostess at the Air Force Depot, but back of it all, you were thinking, wonder which ship was torpedoed tonight. And it always was there, no matter what else you were doing, that was in the back of your mind.
Nellie has kept all of her husband's letters, and from time to time, and especially on Remembrance Day, memories of war are in the letters Nellie's husband Byron had written while at sea.
Dear Nell, received your parcel and letters, 5 to be exact. You'll never know how great mail call is when you have mail from home and food that is special and so welcome. Granted, we share with our buddies, but there is always that taste that's so good, the home touch. Familiar foods and news of family and friends mean so much to me, makes me feel so much closer to reality. Sometimes life doesn't always seem as if home really does exist, but of course I know it does. Your letters pick me up and make me realize that you and our families are home safe. Someday I will be too, God willing. Have to go on duty in 10 minutes, so we'll close for now, much as I hate to. Remember all of us in your prayers. Only the man above can save us now.
Besides the soldier, there are other victims of war, the very old and the children. For Isabel Varden, who was born in Burma, memories of war still haunt her, escaping the clutches of an invading Japanese army.
Colonel Scott of the Flying Tigers came unexpectedly to an airport that had been closed. I think in those days we called them aerodromes. And he touched down, and so my mother, 2 brothers and myself got off on that plane. And we took off and landed in India, where the Red Cross were all waiting for us and welcomed us with open arms. It was wonderful, you know, to get out of all that bombing and sheer terror that we lived through.
Tomorrow evening, an airman relives a moment his bomber was shot from under him. Today, he owes his life to Yugoslav partisans who saved him from the Germans. Bill Jessam, ATV News.
And of course, on Remembrance Day, we'll have Bill's award-winning Pier 21, his personal retrospective on war.
Yeah, looking forward to that. But next, things go better when Yvonne Colbert's on your side. We'll prove that in just a moment.
They've got a letter and a check.
This 17-foot-long great white shark was caught off Santa Barbara Island over the weekend. The shark, which is estimated to weigh between 4,500 and 5,000 pounds, was caught in a net by a fisherman. Now, great whites like to feed on sea lions, and experts say an increase in the sea lion population has probably led to an increase in the sightings of sharks. And quite an amazing catch for that fisherman in that net. Steve Murphy standing by. He's got another amazing story from the seas coming up in the ATV Evening News at 6. And these stories, Steve.
Right, Square Paul, also coming up here at 6 o'clock tonight in your evening news, cuts at the region's biggest hospital could affect your health. You'll find out how these government cuts in health care could affect the level of services tonight in your evening news. Also, yet another land deal on Earth today in which you will take a multi-million-dollar hit in the pocketbook. Get the goods on the promise made by politicians, which cost you about $5 million. Stories coming up. And also here at 6 o'clock, a petition calling for a return to the death penalty or tougher jail sentences is generating a lot of response. The mother of one of the McDonald's murder victims is behind it. We'll hear what she has to say tonight and ask, will the politicians listen? These stories and much more coming up on the ATV Evening News at 6 o'clock, about 20 minutes from now. But right now, live at 5 on your side with Nancy and Yvonne.
Thank you, Steve. It is time now for ATV on your side with Yvonne Colbert. And tonight, a battle over bottles, a bottle battle.
And quite a battle it turned out to be, Nancy, between a store owner and a pop distributor.
We're a small business in this area, and I mean, we just can't absorb that kind of loss. I mean, you know, it might be a mediocre amount of $400, but $400 in a small business in this day and age, it's a lot of money.
The $400 Bill Gervin is talking about is his cost and profit for 25 cases of Coke product. The pop was outdated, and the 25 cases had been accumulating in his store over a period of time.
Now, this was probably, you know, 2 to 3 months in the making, and then October 20th, they came, and, well, I got them signed for the pop on October 20th, so probably about approximately 4 days later, I got a call from their office saying that they wanted to give me 10 cases of 2-liter in, you know, for the value of that pop.
For how much? 10 cases for how much?
10 cases for the value of my 25 cases, so 25 or 26. So, I mean, there was no comparison, you know, completely at all.
He says the agreement had always been to replace outdated product with an equivalent amount of fresh product. Have you ever in the past with Coke exchanged an equal amount for an equal amount?
Oh, every time. I mean, we've been here 3 years, and it's been like that for 3 years.
Gervin says he doesn't know why he was offered only 10 cases of fresh product in return for the 25 outdated cases, but he said no and called the head office in Halifax. They told him to deal directly with the distributor, JF Fennell Enterprises. Saying he had asked for his old product back, they returned it and left it outside his store.
Basically, it was in this area here. It's probably about 6 feet out in and around that area. So you can imagine 25 cases of basic beverages would consume a big area.
All that remains of it now are these battered remnants of cardboard containers. So what happened to the pop? Where'd the 25 cases of pop go?
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I would assume, you know, basic cousin, because this, you know, this is quite a distance from my store, from my counter, let alone my door, and you know, we couldn't be responsible for their, you know, their merchandise. So people just help themselves to it.
So where's it stand now?
Well, I actually it stands with you. That's why I called you. I mean, basically I called them and said, look, you know, what can we do? And they tried to work something out, but they're sticking with their guns at 10 cases. And I said, look, you know, then obviously I've got to go, you know, do what I've got to do.
All right, well, I'm going to ask you the same question you asked him. Where does it stand now?
Well, I called John Fennell, who's the Coke distributor down in the Bridgewater area. He said, what does he want? I said he wants 25 cases of fresh product. John Fennell said, will he put it in writing? I contacted Mr. Gervin. He said yes. The next day, the 25 cases of fresh Coke product was at the Middlewood General Store. Bill Gervin signed for it, and everyone's happy. I got a fax from John Fennell saying, thank you for your help with this customer. Obviously, there was a communication breakdown, and you were instrumental in clearing up this matter. Now, I offered Mr. Fennell the opportunity to appear on camera. He said he wasn't able to speak on behalf of Coke. He did say that previously they had, that Mr. Gervin had asked for money. They had offered to pay him an equivalent amount. He had asked for product. They'd agreed to give that back. They just, there was a communication problem, I think, is what it boils down to. But in any event, everyone is happy, and obviously Coke is a good product because the 25 cases that were outside that general store disappeared in less than a half hour.
Right.
So the word got around.
Well, I guess we've got to give credit to the people who helped you to resolve this as well.
That's right.
Good.
That's the whole point.
All right. Thanks, Yvonne.
You're welcome.
ATV's Yvonne Colbert is on your side. You know that, don't you, Paul?
Sure do, Ness, and maybe she can be on the side of Halifax fixture on the entertainment scene at least that has fallen victim to tough economic times. We've just learned about it. Talking about the Flamingo Cafe and Lounge, it's no more. The pub, as it's more commonly called, is a familiar stomping ground for the most popular acts in Canada and the United States. Bare Naked Ladies, May Moore, and Valdy are just a few of the many performers with fond memories of the Salter Street venue. It's also the spot where many maritime acts got their start. The owners, Epoch Productions, blame the closure on liquor costs and a declining interest in live entertainment. Well, still to come on Live at 5, just when you thought the tabloids could batter the royal family no more, they come out with candid photos of Diana working out, and now she's giving her lawyers a workout. But do the tabloids really care? We've got the story and what Maritimers think about this one when we return.
I think they invaded her privacy. If she was at a private health club, that's why she was at a private health club. I wouldn't like it a bit. I think it would be very rude.
Madonna's taking her girly show world tour to Mexico, and as you can see, some Mexicans are less than thrilled with the act. Protesters accused the singer of corrupting young minds with her sexually suggestive performances. Madonna rubbed some Latin Americans the wrong way when she placed the Puerto Rican flag between her legs at a concert a couple of weeks ago. Brazilian officials are warning that she'll be arrested if she tries to repeat that stunt in their country.
She certainly manages to keep her name in the news, doesn't she?
No question about it. And of course, in London, Princess Diana is, needless to say, less than impressed with the latest royal photo scandal, and she's taking it to court. Princess Di has decided to sue the gym owner who took Peeping Tom pictures of her.
And the lawsuit also names the British tabloids that published the pictures, sparking a major debate about media intrusion. Here's Nick Hyam with an update.
The Daily Mirror appeared this morning complaining that the Press Complaints Commission had given it no chance to defend itself and rubbishing its critics as a shabby crew of hypocrites. It'll get the chance to put its case in court. Today, the Princess issued a writ against the Mirror Group and the two editors who published the pictures. A similar writ was issued against the gym where the pictures were taken and its manager. The celebrity PR man working for the gym said the affair had grown out of all proportion.
I didn't think it would go to this, but I think in view of obviously what has been stirred up not only in this country but all over the world, possibly it was inevitable.
The writ, served on the Mirror by an uncomfortable-looking representative of the Princess's solicitors, demands a ban on further publication of the pictures, plus possible damages. The writs also call for the photographs to be handed over or locked away, and an account of the profits made from selling and publishing them. Last year, when French magazines published pictures of the Duchess of York and her friend John Bryan, the French courts awarded the couple damages for invasion of privacy. But John Bryan was told by the English courts that English law doesn't recognise a right to privacy. The Princess of Wales is alleging breach of contract by the gym and breach of confidence by the gym and the Mirror. Lawyers were divided over whether her case would succeed. Buckingham Palace confirmed that this is the first time the Princess has sued, an indication of how strongly she feels about the issue. Nick Hyam, BBC News.
No question, the issue of privacy is in question. Those photos of Princess Diana working out at a private health club have a lot of people talking. As ATV's Laverne Stewart tells us tonight, a lot of women in this region say everyone has the right to privacy, or should have the right to privacy, and if it happened to them, they would definitely take action.
Go to any newsstand and you'll find lots of copy on Princess Diana, most of which comes in the form of tabloid exposés.
This latest Diana scandal happened as the princess was working out on a machine like this one. A hidden camera took her picture. We asked women at a private health club in Fredericton what they think about this whole affair.
I wouldn't like it a bit. I think it would be very rude.
Well, what would you do about it?
I don't know, probably complain to the owner of the health club to start with.
And what if the owner of that club knew about the hidden camera? If there was a camera up in that plant taking pictures of you as you're working out, and then you found out about it, maybe compromising pictures, how would you feel?
I wouldn't be very happy.
What would you do about it?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to go and think about it. I'd have the feeling that my privacy was invaded.
Well, I guess I would see what legal action was available there.
Many women who pay for the use of private health clubs do so because of the privacy. And that means no hidden cameras, please. In Fredericton, Laverne Stewart, ATV News.
Thank you, Laverne. Well, who says all baby pictures are cute? We've got some you won't believe in just a moment.
And Richard Zarowski standing by with another amazing weather fact and the wake-up forecast when we return.
Baby hippos at Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago. They were born back in September, but so far haven't been put on display. This little nameless pygmy hippo has a face only a mother could love, and when you look at his mother, I guess you can see why. The young calf received the first lesson in swimming, dog paddle, or do you say hippo paddle?
Cute, eh? Not really. Anyway, here's a guy who knows how to get to water, and water usually knows how to get to him, too. Richard Zorowski.
What are you talking about, Paul? Anyway, what we're looking at is clear skies tomorrow morning, cold temperatures, -2 to +3 degrees. It should be a good drive pretty much anywhere in the Maritime region. That brings us to our weather fact. And what we can expect to see is this type of weather fact here, if our weather computer agrees with us. O'Leary, Prince Edward Island, gets 175 days on average each year with frost. How do you like those chilly statistics, Paul and Nancy?
One more time for our telephone poll numbers again tonight. The question is, should prostitution be legalized? If you think it should, call 1-900-273-4040. If you don't think prostitution should be legalized, it's 1-900-273-5050. Calls cost 50 cents. Results tomorrow on Live at 5. And on prime time tonight here on ATV, it's a Full House at 6:30, followed by Murphy Brown as usual at 7, and then a brand new Full House at 7:30. And Countdown at the Neon Armadillo tonight has that wild, wacky Sawyer Brown. Man, that guy dances up a storm, doesn't he? He's joined by Mark Chestnut and Billy Dean. And then at 9, it's Rescue 911, followed by her favorite show, Nancy's, I'm speaking about here, Home Improvement. Great show, Roseanne. John Larroquette at 10:30, and then Tim Allen, the star of Home Improvement, is among the guests in the Barbara Walters special at 11. He's joined by Julia Roberts and Whitney Houston. What a show at 11 tonight.
That's one we've got to catch. Then on the Wednesday edition of Live at 5, there's a new drug that reduces the effects of chickenpox symptoms, but it's not for everyone. Our family doctor, Stuart Cameron, explains who can take it and when it's safe tomorrow at 5.
Hope we'll see you on the midweek edition of Live at 5. That's it for us for now, but the news continues with Steve Murphy. Steve?
Thank you, Paul. Tonight, there's tough medicine for a hospital in critical condition.
Well, I think the major concern right now is layoffs, especially with nursing staff.
What are you? Slamming the door on a campus controversy.
I don't even think he's qualified to be a human. Think like that.
And undercover cops on underground porn and how it gets here.
One of the most deplorable things of society.
Now, from the #1 news team in Atlantic Canada, the ATV Evening News.
Good evening, everyone. The sparks have already begun to fly over impending layoffs at Victoria General Hospital, the largest hospital in Nova Scotia. The hospital has confirmed that as many as 200 people who work there won't be working there. As employees are bracing for the worst, the Minister of Health says Nova Scotians should be bracing for even more of this kind of thing. ATV legislature correspondent Heather Proudfoot joining us now live with the story. Heather?
Well, Steve, the health minister is saying none of those involved should be terribly surprised by all of this. However, his statement doesn't do a lot to allay the concerns of those who will be most directly affected by the cuts.
Outside the Victoria General and inside the corridors of the region's largest hospital, the talk these days is of the cuts that are coming. Nurse Bonnie Huntley has worked here for 2.5 years. She's very worried.
The major concern right now is layoffs, especially with nursing staff. I think the nurses are really concerned about it, and they don't really know what's going to happen as far as who's going to be here tomorrow and who isn't going to be here.
The issue sparked an emergency debate in the legislature last night.
And that debate continued this afternoon during question period at Province House, with some opposition critics wondering how much of this we're going to see in hospitals throughout the province.
Opposition leader Terry Donahoe alluded to cuts in the Cape Breton hospitals.
In the Glace Bay Community Hospital and Glace Bay General Hospital, the Glace Bay Integrated Healthcare System, that some 68 full-time and part-time employees have been laid off, and the rumors are rife around the institutions, as he may be aware, that they will be cutting 5 operating room staff there.
It's just an out-and-out betrayal of those commitments made throughout the election.
And outside the House, the Minister of Health acknowledged that other hospitals are and will be going through a similar exercise, but he shied away from offering any total numbers. How many other hospitals are going to be affected this way?
We're going to have major changes in the system in the province. There's no question about that.
Meanwhile, on the issue of early retirement packages or other compensation that might be offered laid-off employees, the Finance Minister says they're working on it.
Well, the discussions are ongoing, and we want to do it as soon as we've resolved all of the remaining outstanding issues.
Back at the hospital, healthcare professionals say they worry not only about their own futures, but about the future of healthcare.
You keep putting us down and keep backing us up, and we're going to work that much harder. But still, I think there will be a change in the future.
Now, those same healthcare professionals say they fully understand government's stated desire to move towards things like home care and preventive medicine, but they say they're concerned that those systems aren't in place yet, not adequately enough anyway, to compensate for the cuts in hospitals. Steve.
All right, Heather. Thanks for the update tonight.
Thank
ATV's
you.
Heather Proudfoot live in Halifax. One other note on government cutbacks. Nova Scotia is also moving to eliminate a program that helps diabetics pay for their drugs and special food. Those now receiving the benefits will continue to do so, but no new applicants will be accepted. The Savage government served notice in its budget that eligibility for many of its programs is being reviewed. Well, the man who wrote the letter, the opinion letter in the UNB newspaper, is not commenting on the controversy he has created tonight. Math professor Matan Yakzan is not willing to talk about his controversial views on date rape unless he's paid. ATV's Kate Lederick joining us live from Fredericton with more on this story tonight. Kate?
Well, Steve, Yakson is well known around the city of Fredericton for his strong opinions, and this article on date rape has made many people very angry. But since the paper came out, he's remained very tight-lipped.
UNB math professor Matt Yakson is in the middle of a date rape controversy. In an article in the university newspaper The Brunswickan, Yakson suggests that a woman who is invited up to a man's room should consider it an invitation for sex. And the professor also says women with wide sexual experience don't suffer from rape like virgins. Professor Yakson refused to come out and talk to the media, but he did slide this rate card for interviews out from under the door. The going rate for TV interviews is $5,000, but as of yesterday, that rate has been multiplied by 5. The article has enraged people like Doreen Votor, who deals with students who have experienced date rape.
I think it's very frightening. All I can think about is what it would be like for a female student to have to walk into that classroom Monday morning knowing that the male professor feels this way. I think it's a problem, certainly, and it reflects badly on the institutions.
Women's groups call the article disturbing,
because this is creating a climate that is very harmful towards women. It's promoting violence against women, and what he's talking about is illegal. Rape is illegal, and so I think they should charge him with sexual harassment.
So it's a very serious situation here.
It is. This man is a professor.
And most of the students we spoke to on campus agree.
I don't even think he's qualified to be a human to think like that, because I'm sure if he had children and a daughter and she was raped, he wouldn't think like that at all. It's just morally wrong what he wrote, and I hope something happens to him.
It's an insult to women. I don't understand how he can say stuff like that.
I don't think it gives them the right to portray women like that, saying that if they're not virgins, well, it doesn't really matter if they're raped or not.
I don't want to say it makes sense, but I mean, there's some logic to it. I mean, the woman knows that, like, most of the time, if she does go to his room, she knows what's going to happen.
The university is now reviewing the article and going over its sexual harassment policy. It will then decide if disciplinary action will be taken against Professor Yakson. Steve?
All right. Thank you, Kate. ATV's Kate Lederick live tonight in Fredericton. A former teacher at Nova Scotia's Kingston Bible College has pleaded guilty to sex-related charges involving students. 45-year-old Leroy Owen Wood charged last year with sexually assaulting 7 girls between the years 1980 and October of last year. He had originally pleaded not guilty and had been committed to stand trial. He will now be sentenced on the 5th of January. And the Mounties also confirmed they're investigating allegations of sexual misconduct involving a teacher, identified only as a man, at the Waikagama Consolidated School in Cape Breton. A teacher has been removed from the school until the investigation is complete. That's normal procedure in this kind of case. It is not normal for RCMP to comment, though, unless they have decided to lay charges. They were forced to make a public statement in this case, however, because of rumors in the small community. And a judge in St. John has ruled there is enough evidence to commit a 64-year-old man to trial on a series of sex offenses. Michael Weldon Raymond is a former inmate at the Kingsclear Detention Center. It is alleged he committed sex offenses against youth who were imprisoned there. Raymond has elected trial by judge and jury. No trial date has yet been set. The mother of one of the victims of the McDonald's murder says almost 15,000 people have now signed a petition calling for the reinstatement of the death penalty. Olive Warren says the goal here is to ask the federal government to change the law.
I now want to get about 20, maybe 30,000, and then I'm hoping to be able to head to Ottawa to present it to either Prime Minister or the Justice Minister.
The death penalty petition is being circulated throughout Nova Scotia and as far away as Alberta. The victims' families say they will be contacting their local members of Parliament in the near future to help arrange the necessary meetings in Ottawa. Here's a warning to car owners following an unusual number of break-ins to cars. Thieves have been averaging 3 a night in one St. John neighborhood. Of course, this is the time of year when shoppers will start leaving parcels in their cars. ATV's Connell Smith is standing by tonight. I wonder what the police have to say about all this, Connell.
Steve, they're issuing warnings we've heard before. Lock your car, don't leave valuable items lying around in view. They want the public to be aware that this can happen to anybody at any time, and even if in broad daylight.
And the tapes were scattered around the floor of the car.
Wayne Caldwell's car was hit a couple of months ago. It was an easy target. For once, he'd left it unlocked.
No damage, no, not to speak of, no. $12 calculator. I don't leave anything of value in my car.
Caldwell's total loss may be only a couple of cassette tapes. The calculator was recovered. Others are losing a lot more.
Oh, with a crowbar, you could break that window, no problem. And,
It's Sergeant Leonard Stull's job to try and prevent crime, hopefully by teaching the public how to protect their property. One surefire way, he says, is to keep valuables out of sight.
But if it's locked and out of sight, they're not going to break in. Not likely, anyway.
To show just how quickly things can happen, we asked Aubrey Gailey of Vince's Auto Salvage to demonstrate on a wreck.
Just catch her quite close to the corner here somewhere and give her a quick snap. And give her a whack. She's done. Just tap her in.
There's been a lot of glass smashing in St. John over the past 3 weeks. Mike Flynn owns Apple Auto Glass.
People are telling me that it's happening in broad daylight. They might leave their car for 5 minutes and come back and the window's smashed.
Flynn says his shop has averaged 7 to 8 smashed side windows per week.
The siren, which mounts under your hood.
Andrew Hamburg feels he has the solution. He co-owns Custom Auto Sound and Graphics. Among their products, car alarms.
Okay. And if anyone wants to come up and hit it, the alarm sets off.
The alarms sell for just under $300 installed.
Now, Steve, you don't always have to go to that expense, of course. Putting stuff in the trunk is a really good idea. Police say it takes a lot of effort to get a trunk open. They're rarely broken into. You can pry and bash on it for half an hour. It's just not worth the thieves' while to go to that effort.
Right, you are. It's good advice, very timely, too. Thank you, Connell. ATV's Connell Smith live at the ATV St. John News Center. Still ahead here tonight, an I-Team follow-up on a story that's prompted government action. Also ahead tonight, child pornography. How is it getting here and how to get rid of it? But first to next, North American free trade. Will it cost you a job or maybe get you one? When we come back.
Honda introduces a safe place to keep your valuables. The all-new 1994 Accord. 3 years ahead of its time for passenger safety. Totally redesigned with more power, more comfort, and sweeter handling. A winning combination at $322.28 per month at your Atlantic Honda dealer. You've never put your valuables in a safer, more beautiful place.
Only the lonely know the heartaches I've been through.
To the dismay of certain individuals, more people are spending less time at home.
There goes my baby, there goes my heart.
Because by having Boost between meals or sometimes as a meal, they're getting many of the nutrients they need to help them keep active.
Only
Sorry, pal.
What would make you try Uncle Ben's cooking sauces?
I'd have to know what's in them.
Vegetables, spices, herbs, other wholesome ingredients?
My family's big on homemade taste.
Our sauces are slow simmered for homemade taste made easy.
How easy?
Just add the sauce to meat or chicken and serve over rice.
Only rice?
Or pasta.
They love pasta.
Try it with our sauce.
Okay, I'll try it.
Good.
But what if I don't like it?
Send us the label, your name and address. You'll get your money back. Uncle Ben's cooking sauces. Taste so good it's guaranteed.
Great.
Last year, the McFadgens of Riverview toured 26 states. That's a lot of motoring. But according to Mary and Ritas, the best part of every day was relaxing with a cup of King Cole tea. King Cole, a better tasting cup of tea. Agathe Hachet of Cap Bateau insisted on a traditional wedding. Her gown was hand-sewn by her mother, Josephine, and all the food was homemade. The tea that Agathe served? King Cole, of course. King Cole, a better tasting cup of tea.
And the Bank of Canada rate is down for the 5th week in a row, 4.4%, down from 4.51. It follows a move by Canada's major banks and trust companies to drop the prime rates to 5.5%. Well, those watching the North American free trade debate will probably agree it's deja vu all over again. The familiar battle lines have again been drawn, with labor groups opposed to the deal and business generally in favor of it. ATV's Mike Cameron standing by live in St. John. So, Mike, what is the general view of NAFTA here in the Maritimes?
Well, generally speaking, Steve, NAFTA has produced very little interest within the maritime business community and in academic circles as well. We've yet to see the definitive statement, the definitive study made on the economic impact of NAFTA here in the Maritimes, and that's probably because right now trade between Mexico and the Maritimes is negligible.
Well, yeah, we have a ship over here. Adam McBride looks out over the port of St. John. In coming years, he sees a lot more Canadian exports moving through here to Mexico.
Economic activity, it's jobs on the dock, and perhaps just as important, more importantly, it's jobs in manufacturing plants, it's jobs in transportation, it's jobs in customs, it's just jobs throughout the economy that arise from the economic activity that can grow in the Mexico region.
Free trade supporters point to Mexico's market of 80 million people. But opponents say the minimum wage in Mexico is $4.50 a day. They say Canadian workers will be forced to accept a lower standard of living.
Well, you can see Europe, in fact, they're starting to be concerned themselves about what they've gotten themselves into.
Joy Hobson ran for the anti-free trade National Party. She says Canadian companies will be moving south.
We've already got businesses that have been working on it since they knew NAFTA was going to be going into effect. You will see when NAFTA is proclaimed, you will see shutdowns, just like Gillette and Mattel and Massey Ferguson. You will see it all shut down.
A lot of analysts say the most likely export from our region will be technology. Mexico has little in the way of public infrastructure, and a lot of civil engineering firms in our area will be looking for big contracts as Mexico tries to upgrade.
Connors Brothers is one of the few maritime companies actively pursuing the Mexican market. This year, it will ship about $3 million worth of sardines into Mexico.
But right now, Mexico accounts for less than 1% of trade between, less than 1% of the trade in Atlantic Canada goes to Mexico. So maybe that's why one study has concluded that so far Atlantic Canadians are generally unaware or unconcerned when it comes to the trade deal. Steve?
All right, Mike. Probably confuses a fair number of people, too. Yeah. Thanks. ATV's Mike Cameron live tonight in St. John. Still on the subject of free trade, the governor of Maine is accusing New Brunswick of breaking the Canada-U.S. free trade agreement. Jock McKernan says New Brunswick is charging sales tax on purchases made in Maine, but not on those made in other Canadian provinces. He says that is a violation of the free trade agreement. The finance minister, Alan Marr, denies the tax collection is unfairly targeting Maine. There are calls for an audit of the Halifax Industrial Commission tonight, following stories we aired here on the ATV Evening News about some of its deals, notably a sale to Price Club of land worth nearly 4 times the purchase price. Now, an Ontario company is buying land at the Bears Lake Park at half price. In the midst of all of this, the Industrial Commissioner, whose company got an untendered contract with Price Club, is defending the deals and the man who sold the land. ATV's Rick Grant tonight.
Price Club bought its land at less than 1/3 of what it cost taxpayers to buy and develop the property. There were a number of other elements in the deal which favored Price Club, particularly this road.
I don't feel comfortable with it, there's no question.
Steve Adams wants an audit of the Industrial Commission and wants it to include items like Michael Watson's contract with the city. Watson is paid $78,000 a year in salary and a 3% commission on the land he sells, which has generally been sold at a loss.
The audit is something that must be done. The year has to be cleared for everyone's best interest.
You've got to have a lot of skills. I think he's got them. I think he's worth what he's being paid.
Peter Evans is a director of the Industrial Commission and is also listed as a director of E&G Management, which received a project management contract with Price Club.
I'm not involved in that company. Haven't been.
Although the Provincial Registry of Joint Stock Companies still listed Evans as a director of E&G as late as this morning, Commission Chairman Daniel Gallivan says he accepts Evans' word and he's not in a conflict of interest. Meanwhile, the Commission recently sold this land just down the road from Price Club to another retail company for $3.8 million, also well below cost. It is costing city taxpayers $4.5 million to prepare this site for the Trinity Group. And even when that company finishes paying for the land in 1995, according to this report prepared by city staff for council, the Industrial Commission will still lose $400,000 on that element of the deal alone. And that doesn't include about $4 million tax dollars spent to acquire the land in the first place, but city staff and commission believe future tax revenues will justify the development costs. In Halifax, Rick Grant, ATV News.
And still ahead tonight in your evening news, Richard with the word on the midweek weather, and then the word from the man. It's Trudeau on Trudeau. But first to next, child pornography and how it's getting here.
We do know that shipments of child pornography and shipments of other material were believed to be coming from an individual in the Maritime provinces.
I couldn't believe it when the Guardian pharmacist asked me, like he could read my mind. He said, will you be vacationing down south this year? I said, sure. I come down here every year. You know, get away for a while, get a little sunshine. And he said, well, your medication can make you very susceptible to sunshine. Make sure you use a strong sunscreen. Was I impressed? I mean, I could have gotten a bad burn if he hadn't told me. That's what I like about Guardian. They talk to you.
Get to know your Guardian pharmacist.
I'll be home for Christmas.
When we think of a jolly old guy in a red coat, we think of Henry.
Merry Christmas. Got all kinds of terrific gifts.
He's got all kinds of friendly advice.
Don't forget our great prices.
The DeLonghi Cafe Espresso Cappuccino Maker with steam control is just $144.97.
Looking good, Santa. So where are all your gifts?
I've got some friends in the biz.
Hey, thanks. I'll be home for Christmas. Home of the handyman.
Yeah, this is nice. Like the seats. Lots of room, that's good. Whoa, lots of room back there, too. Right, smooth. Real smooth. Ah, they must have fixed this road.
Chevy, the most dependable, longest-lasting trucks on the road. Even when it's just barely a road at all.
The stuffed-up feeling.
Pain, pressure,
Runny nose.
At least you've got a nose.
Tristan relieves all your sinus cold symptoms. The sinus cold calls for Tristan.
If this scares you, you may need a shrink. Introducing non-greasy Preparation H cream. It shrinks hemorrhoids to relieve the pain and itch.
More now on the groundbreaking investigation by Nova Scotia's Prostitution Task Force into child pornography in the Maritimes. New laws do mean that police forces are better equipped to fight pornography, but how is child porn getting to the Maritimes? ATV's Janice Landry has the answer to this and other questions in the second and final part of her special on child pornography. Due to the nature of the subject, this story may not be appropriate for younger viewers.
It's probably one of the most deplorable things of society.
This undercover Halifax police officer is talking about child pornography. He works on the Morality Squad, which investigates prostitution and pornography. In his 24 years in the force, he's never investigated a case of child porn, but he says that doesn't mean it's not here.
You can get it if you know where to go to get it.
I would suspect it's available. I think most of it comes from outside the country, and it's smuggled in. You have to either get a complaint or get some knowledge, and if you have neither,
you don't have a case.
You don't have a case.
The officer compares it to drugs or illegal guns. It's an underground network, one where if you have connections, you can get child pornography, and people are trying to get it. An employee of the only adult video store in Halifax, who wants to remain anonymous, says people approach her by phone or in person, looking for rejected movies like child porn.
People won't get descriptive. They'll just ask me, do you have anything behind the counter? And I don't carry anything behind the counter, so I'll just tell them, and then they'll rent what's here or they'll leave.
Canadian pornography law was strengthened just over 2 months ago. It's now illegal to possess child porn. That offense carries a maximum jail term of 5 years. For producing it, you face a possible 10-year sentence. That's also the maximum prison term for anyone caught distributing or importing child porn. And importation is one area targeted by a Toronto task force called Project P. Project Pornography says an investigation 2 years ago led them straight to the Maritimes.
We do know that shipments of child pornography and shipments of other material were believed to be coming from an individual in the Maritime provinces.
Importation can also happen through the mail, and Canada Post has no way to control it.
I don't want to say they have free reign, but the way it exists now, it's illegal for you or I to open up somebody else's package and look into it.
Well, very much as you're saying, it's the responsibility of the sender to ensure that they're not sending something that would be considered obscene.
Pornography can also filter across provincial borders. While some cars and bags are checked at border crossings, not everything can be, so pornography can slip through.
So there are ways that child pornography can make its way into our region. Police and lobby groups are doing what they can, but you can also help by reporting any obscene material you feel borders on child pornography. Police say all complaints will be investigated. Janice Landry, ATV News.
Thank you, Janice. We have meteorologist Richard Zarowski and also a word from the philosopher king. Actually, it's a whole book full of words from Pierre Elliott Trudeau. That's coming up.
He was a tough son.
Great. You're determined to quit smoking. But not when you're swamped at work. Then certainly not while you're on vacation. And not on your birthday. Or on the weekend. And definitely not now. That is the worst time. Finally, there's Nicorette, 2 milligram nicotine chewing pieces to help control your cravings by slowly weaning you off nicotine. Prescribed for years by doctors, it's now available without a prescription. Ask your pharmacist for Nicorette. Don't put it off. Break it off. For more information, call this number.
Oh, excuse me. Is there a bank around here?
The credit union, around the corner. I work there.
But I need everything.
We've got it. My name's Ann Howe.
Paul Monahan. Hi.
Oh, are you any relation to the Monahan? Suzanne, this is Mike Monahan's cousin Paul. He's new around here and he wants to open a full-service account.
Cash machine card, MasterCard, the works. Sure.
Great.
You can expect to get everything where we know your name, the credit union.
Air Nova and Continental Airlines invite you to do the one step. One ticket, one baggage check, one connection at Newark. Air Nova gets you from Atlantic Canada onto non-stop flights to more than 50 cities in the USA. So while the other guys waltz you all around the country, Air Nova gives you the one step to more than 50 cities in the USA and beyond. Sounds Fantastic is proud to present Pioneer Pre-Christmas 1993. You'll be blown away by the ultimate in home entertainment, Pioneer's Laser Home Theater. Pioneer Home Stereo Systems on special from $9.99. Pioneer Car Stereos from $199 to $5,099. All with guaranteed satisfaction or your money back. And free delivery anywhere in Atlantic Canada. Drop in or call Sounds Fantastic toll-free today.
43 pilot whales stranded on the northern tip of New Zealand's South Island died today after rescue attempts failed. The rescuers are planning, however, to save the remaining 56 surviving whales, moving them onto trucks and driving them into deeper water. The 99 whales beached themselves Monday on Farewell Spit, which is a hook-like peninsula on Golden Bay. It's notorious for whale strandings. Many of these 10-foot mammals died after crushing each other in closely packed groups. The others died of exhaustion after hours and hours of thrashing about. Sad to see. Time now for the weather forecast. Meteorologist Richard Zarowski at the ATV Weather Center on a day that really felt more like March or April than November, and maybe we're going to skip the winter this year.
You know, Steve, that's a pretty good thought. I think most Maritimers are feeling as though if we can keep this going until December sometime, it would be just all right. And of course, we got lots of sunshine. They got some sunshine in the central areas of the map. By and large, we're all in the same air mass. It's a little bit on the cooler side. However, the sunshine's making things seem rather nice. And you can see cooler stuff in through the southern prairies, -5 to -19 degrees. It looks like the cold spot of the temperatures we picked up this afternoon is still around Churchill, so around Hudson Bay. It seems to be very, very cold up there. Cooler stuff also pushing down into the southern areas and mid-central areas of the states. Phoenix only recording a temperature of 19 degrees. It looks like the hot stuff, though. If you plan on going down to Florida and know anybody down there, they're still enjoying some hot weather down there. And you can see a smattering of temperatures behind me that are pretty much indicative of the type of air mass that we're in. Now, as far as our weather patterns go now, what we're looking at is this area of high pressure dominating things. It'll continue to do so. By tomorrow evening, it's pushing in through the maritime regions. A weak cold front off to the north is going to provide a little bit in the way of cloud and possibly a few scattered snow flurries here and there. Jet stream telling us the same story that we had yesterday, in that most of the air covering North America, particularly the northern half of North America, is Arctic air, and that keeps the temperature down. Of course, the jet stream does separate the cold air from the north, from the milder air down to the south. You can see it stretches all the way into the mid portions of the United States, and of course, the cold temperatures also stretch that far. As far as our forecast goes, for tonight, we're looking at cold stuff in through most of New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island, 0 to about -6 degrees. Also some scattered snow flurries to the north with that system. Down along the mainland of Nova Scotia, anywhere from 0 to +2 or 3 degrees. Clear spots, cloudy spots. Pretty much indicative of the type of weather we're going to be getting for the next little while. Not much in the way of precipitation at all. Nighttime temperatures will be on the cooler side. For tomorrow, we'll see some sunshine. Again, first thing in the morning, some scattered snow flurries up there. Temperatures will be on the cool side to the north, off the Bay of Chaleur, anywhere from 4 degrees to about 8 degrees in through New Brunswick. Marginally warmer in the mainland of Nova Scotia, 8 to 9 degrees, and out to the east, that'll be the coolest temperature. Again, the influence of the water for the daytime cooling, anywhere from 5 to 6 degrees, both in Prince Edward Island and Cape Breton Island. Let's take a look at some of those temperatures across Canada. Urban settings show that the cooler stuff is moving in through Hudson Bay, again James Bay, down around the freezing mark in most areas, in through the central portions of Canada. Looks like some warm spots in British Columbia, southern areas of Ontario, and of course, the maritime regions. Outlook says Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 7 to 8 degrees, the 30% probability of precipitation, Steve. Mainly sunny conditions to partly cloudy conditions right through the time period. So we'll keep this weather as long as we can get it. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you, Richard. Well, he is certainly the closest thing we have in Canada to a living political legend. And today, Pierre Elliott Trudeau launched a book tour to promote his memoirs. In the book called Memoirs, Trudeau defends many of the stands he took as Prime Minister, doesn't take any shots at people, does say Brian Mulroney was subservient to the United States, and as for Joe Clark, says he was a tougher foe in the House of Commons.
I must say he got under my skin, and I found that the job of a good leader of the opposition. That's why I thought he'd be more dangerous for me anyhow than Mulroney was.
Those expecting a kiss and tell book from Trudeau will be somewhat disappointed. There are a few references to his stormy relationship with Margaret, which of course ended in divorce. Certain to be a bestseller, though. That's our news for now. For my colleagues on both sides of the cameras, Steve Murphy here. Thank you and good night from the ATV News team.